Hello, folks. Welcome to the briefing on handling the ECAM procedure. So, we'll begin with a situation where ECAM actions, that is, ECAM, QRH, or OEP actions, have been completed. Usually, this is the time when both pilots start talking to each other without a clear plan in mind. So, what should happen after ECAM actions are completed? Usually, there is several seconds of silence while both PF and PM try to figure out what is to be done next. Then both start speaking, analyzing status, composing messages to company, etc. This would result in their getting in each other's way. Instead, let's follow this procedure. First, the PM should announce clearly ECAM actions completed. After this, the PM should say, you have controls and comms, I will analyze the situation. So with this process, we are now getting back to the normal task sharing rules. If time permits, review the FCOM for additional information. When would you do this? The second line says, however, the flight crew should not prolong the flight. Let's see what would prolong the flight be akin to. Okay. First, how do I know whether I'm prolonging the flight? Either land ASAP is indicated on the ECAM actions page, or this would be the case for fire, fuel leak, smoke, passenger sick, etc. Or for any other reason, you decide that a land ASAP situation exists. Let's discuss a special case of a flameout. Let's say you had a flameout, you've taken the ECAM actions. In the process of the ECAM actions, you would come to the status page at which you would stop and carry out a relight as part of the ECAM actions. So you would have completed the relight procedure before you embark on this procedure. If the engine has not relit, you would see a land ASAP in amber. So you would still be in a situation where you should not prolong the flight. Okay, let's see. Now we need to assess the situation. What does this mean? When convenient, recall the status page. When is it convenient? When there is no pending ATC clearances, level change, direction change, reporting point, etc. etc. So now that is convenient, put on the status page and assess the situation. What would you get from the status page? You would get a summary of aircraft landing capability, if there's an increase in fuel consumption, if landing distance procedure needs to be applied, and if there are any deferred items before approach execution. These are the facts that you are gathering for the decision making process which will follow. Let's have a brief look at what are deferred items. For instance, you might see if overheat light out, then put the pump on. If you do this at this time, then the overheat light would go off and you would put on the pump, and subsequently you would have the overheat once again. Therefore, this procedure is classified as a deferred procedure, which means that when you commence the approach, you would put the hydraulic system on for reconfiguring. How will you remember that you need to do this? This would happen because on selecting flaps 1, the status page will pop up to remind you that there are deferred actions to be carried out. At this point, you can select the system on and you would have a normal hydraulic system function. So what we discussed was about the status page. Let's now go what happens after the status page. First, check any fuel penalty factor. What would this do? This would give you how much fuel you have at destination. How are we going to check this factor? First, check for the diversionary airport. Whatever your minimum diversion fuel is, add the new fuel consumption to that and correct this in your MDF page. This will mean that when this turns amber, you no longer have enough fuel to divert to your alternate, and you would be able to inform the ATC that you are incapable of diversion. How would you check the fuel remaining at destination? Apply the fuel penalty factor to the difference between fuel on board and fuel predicted at your destination. And now you know what is the new fuel that you are going to be at your destination. If this is below the diversion fuel that you calculated, then you have to change your flight plan or else inform the ATC that you will not be able to divert. Next, we check any landing distance penalty and compute the landing distance. Next, you check the weather at the destination and figure out whether it's within minima, below minima, and how much margin there is from the minima. This will tell you, first of all, that you can reach your chosen destination. After having reached, you can land there and the weather minima is sufficient for you to make an approach at that field. Next, what would you do? You would consider the operational, maintenance, and commercial aspects. First, the operational aspects. Here we consider whether autopilot is available, which means RVSM capability. Then we check the weather en route, RNAV capability, and aircraft landing capability. Let's take a case where we are unable to do RVSM because the autopilot has failed. In this case, remember it is not a land ASAP situation. So request ATC for the cleared flight level specifying that non-RVSM due equipment failure. When you filed your flight plan, you were RVSM capable. Now you've had a failure en route. So ATC will give you a different a climb to that level, ensuring that there is non-RVSM separation between you and the other traffic. To do this, he might have to give you lateral separation or he might ask you to change flight level, but he will give you the higher level. So remember, it's not a land ASAP situation. You should continue on your way till a decision not to continue needs to be made on this or any other grounds. Next, let's look at maintenance. So here you should check the MEL. Once again, put on the recall page, get the exact title of failure and go to MEL entries. The entries will lead you either to an item or it will tell you that dispatch is not possible. So if there's no dispatch, it means the aircraft cannot fly out of whichever field you land on without maintenance action. So here you need not decide to turn back looking at this no dispatch page. What you should do is inform the company. The reason is the company knows that you had this failure, including whether it's a dispatch or no dispatch condition. What they don't know is your intentions as yet. So if you inform them that you are continuing to your destination, if they have any difference of opinion, they will convey it to you. So you need not decide on your own that you will either turn back or divert to any other airfield without informing the company. So we've assembled all these facts, which are briefly that you can reach the place, you can land at that place, and your operational, maintenance, and commercial aspects have been considered. Based on all this, we would be making a decision. Let's see what is this process. Okay, the decision-making process would be carried out by the PF, and he would arrive at an interim decision. Before he executes his decision, he will validate it by discussing with the PM. So let us see how they would do that. The facts and options have been gathered and evaluated by the PF, and he will share them with the PM. He will say facts, FCOM has been reviewed, fuel required is available, we have so much available and so much is required. Weather versus minima and landing capability. Now obviously these requirements of fuel, weather, landing capability are required for specific airfields. So which airfields are these? These are our options. In case it's a land ASAP situation, then these are the nearest field and the next suitable field. In case it is not land ASAP, then this is a destination field and the alternate. So the PF has identified these facts and evaluated the risks. Remember, both fields are suitable. Later, PF and PM will discuss two valid choices, which is this process of evaluating facts and options. What happens next? We evaluate the risks. Okay, this covered two fields, identified the margins for weather, fuel, and landing distance. Each field would have different margins, and a very small margin should be grounds for caution. Because remember, it is not a land ASAP condition. Similarly, if visibility is say 800 meters and our approach category is Cat 1, it would be wiser to take the next field which has better margins over your minima. A useful guide is 400 meters visibility and 200 feet cloud base, as we consider for diversionary airfields. So, risks consist of weather and landing distance margins. PF will make an evaluation based on facts, options, and risks. Now we come to the decision. Both crew members would review facts, options, and risks. PF would advocate a preferred option. PM would confirm adequate margins and discuss their option. For example, PF could have made a decision that 800 meters visibility is acceptable, which it is. PM could discuss that a small change in visibility might result in weather below minimums and advocate the other field. PF would now decide which option the crew should use, and this is a decision that we will arrive at after due process of problem solving. Having made the decision, how do we execute it? Both PF and PM have reached a decision, and PF will now execute it. If the decision is to continue, no further action is required. If the decision is to divert, PM takes over communication and asks ATC for a routing. He then puts this new routing into the MCDU, confirms with the PM and executes it. This will now give the crew a confirmation of the fuel and time at the new destination. What is the cross-check? PM would have confirmed the PF's decision of margins for fuel, weather and landing distance. He would later cross-check the flight plan and make his own calculation. In case any margins were critical, PM would keep a track of them. Possibly there are pending items like confirmation from company that they should continue the destination. Whether close to minima might require cross-check during the remaining part of the cruise. So what have we done so far? Let's evaluate what has taken place. A quick recap. Having completed ECAM actions, we would go to task sharing. Task sharing would mean that PF allocates the task and says, you have control and communications, I will evaluate the situation. Then he takes out the FCOM and sees any further actions for the failure. Then he opens the status page and checks for any requirement of calculating fuel consumption or landing distance. Then he checks the weather. Now and checks for any deferred actions. So he's got the fuel penalty, landing distance and check the minima. Next he discusses the operational, maintenance and commercial aspects. Having evaluated all these, he decides whether he will continue towards his destination or divert. This is an interim decision. This decision he evaluates with a problem-solving technique by going through the process of coding along with the PM. During this process, he will execute the decision and continue as we have discussed. So what have we done? We've gone through the FCTM and covered the process for evaluation and decision making after ECAM, QRH and OEB actions have been completed. Now, in case you want to make your notes and have this ready for your next sim session, I would advocate that you copy this page and make diagrams like this so that you can check your evaluation of whether you can recap this in slide or not. Thank you for listening patiently and all the best for your session.